Bronwyn discusses what community is to her.
I think community is about sort of, well, maybe this is just saying, this is the definition, like it's about grassroots, it's about people talking to each other. I suppose you can have online communities and internet communities, but they're sort of a bit of a one-off thing. You're not really making a lasting sort of a relationship or something. So I suppose, and it is in Thomastown. It's about people talking to each other, and then it sort of comes back. Sometimes the story gets a little bit skew-whiffed along the way, but that's all part of it. It doesn't sort of matter necessarily. But yeah, I suppose sharing food and sharing cultures, I think, is another big part of the Thomastown community. And everybody really wants to do that. They want to show other people. They're proud of their heritage as well as their place within Australia, within Victoria, within Thomastown. But I find that's really, like I go to a function and I get a plate full and I want to take it all home. Beautiful, homemade, delicious food. Yeah, and that's with everybody, not just a politician. Everybody's doing that.
Discussing food. Think about this. You almost always do this while eating food. You also talk about heritage. It goes hand in hand.
Probably from, like, I'm a sort of Anglo, I think I only just found out that on my dad's side maybe we came from a very poor suburb of London called Stepney, and that was my great-grandfather, and they went to the gold mines in Malden and started gold mining. Didn't really make any money or do all that much there. So that's my sort of thing. But now, if I go somewhere, I always take some food. I always, I'm learning Greek dancing. It's really good.
We talked about social issues.
There is social issues. There is, family violence is high in our area. I'm like you, though. I remember when I first started door knocking in 2010 when I first stood for election, and I still remember this woman, and I wish I had kept the thing, so I'd like to go and see her again. Knocked on the door, she opened the door, I said I'm standing in the election, introducing myself, and she goes, and what do you want to tell me, how bad I am, how poor I am, how this is wrong and that's wrong? And I went, what? And often politicians do get stuck into that sort of, it's all about the doom and gloom and everything's bad. It's just, that's just so unempowering and wrong and bad form and everything. So I think in terms, you've got to know that there are some social issues. As I said, family violence is really terrible, but I think it's about how your community responds is more the issue and what is going to be done about it. And I sort of think with what the state government's doing on that, I think people in Thomastown will respond really well. Unemployment, again, there's things that I think we're doing and they'll be embraced.
Family violence, domestic violence are big issues. What are some of the underlying reasons why this type of thing happens?
What I'm told, I think this is probably true, it's a women equality issue where women are not considered equal. And so that permeates through everything. I could tell you where I grew up in Watsonia, I know, and Watsonia when I grew up there was not one. I remember the first boy that went to our school who was from Yugoslavia, and didn't even know how to be racist because there wasn't anybody from another country. So all we wanted to do was ask him, what do you eat? What do you do? What happens over there? It was really, looking back, it was a very isolated place. And I know I grew up with girls that were subject to family violence. Their dad would beat their mum up and them up. I knew, hold guns to their family, all these horrible things. I know, friends that I went to school with who married men that beat them up. So it's certainly not a cultural thing in terms of, it certainly happens, I think, through our, we also know there's other communities that seem to have more. We don't know if it's reports of violence. Yeah. So I don't know if it's cultural. It's about how women are perceived and whether they're considered equal or not. How you tackle it might be different culturally, maybe. depending on what culture or group. And it's nothing to do with income, although of course mortgage stress out in the outer suburbs might be a thing that sort of triggers some of this stuff.
Now to that perennial question. How Australian do you feel?
I don't know anything else, I guess, because I sort of, having been here and mixed more with people of different cultural backgrounds and ethnicities, I must say sometimes you then think about yourself, because on my mother's side, her grandparents were German. They migrated to Australia from Germany. And I tell you, when I go to the citizenship ceremonies, I explain how my great-grandfather was actually an illegal immigrant. He was on a merchant ship where he was working, and he just got off when the First World War broke out. So very similar story to people now that are coming to here. And he just didn't get back on again. But in those days, well, they needed the tradespeople, so there was no problem about it. He just wandered around and lived a normal life, and got an age pension when he was due to retire. Anyway, so on that side, being German, though, I think someone actually said to me, because I sort of said, well, I don't really have any German. We don't do, maybe we eat a bit of, German sausage and stuff that other kids never did when we were years ago. But it was sort of explained to me maybe that was because of the war. So you sort of suppressed the German heritage because, we were at war with the Germans. And I sort of thought, maybe that's true. And it's sort of a bit of I sort of missed out on something really in terms of that. So a long-winded explanation about it being Australian. So I'm sort of glad those sort of days are over, so people they don't have to suppress, and I'm not saying I did, but maybe my mother and my grandmother, you don't have to suppress your sort of identity, because I think everybody needs to have an identity. You need to know where you came from. You need to have pride in what your background is.
We can't have a politician on and not talk about politics. Here's a segment.
I really get I suppose sad in a way when I sort of hear comments about, we're in a safe seat, so no one cares about what we think, no point doing anything about it because it's not going to change anything. Because every time people do something, they can change something. And I also sort of worry that people don't know the things that are happening as well, which is sort of also a bit of a disempowering thing because and this is, I suppose, the politics. When and it's my job, and I don't do it very well, and I'd love to know how to do it, in telling people what is going on. Like I sort of look around, Barry Road Community Centre, all these community centres that make community, where you've got people coming in together, enjoying, dancing, food, socialising, stopping isolation. Many of them are being refurbished and rebuilt and made bigger, Labor government money. Apprenticeships, Labor government policy. The hospital, everyone we know thinks the hospital is awful, but the reputation is changing. Labor got rid of the last management, put in I don't know, he just seems really good to me, and he seems that he's got a handle of things. There is still problems with infrastructure, so you can't get 100% performance, but I just get a whole new feel, and people tell me they feel confident now to go to the Northern Hospital. The roads, yes, not quite there yet, but getting there. The Dalton Road roundabout, that's been removed, and I suppose that's in sort of 2 years of the Labor government in Thomastown, Laylaw, Epping, and then I think back from 2010 to 14, that's 4 years, and I can't name one thing that was built or contributed to or made. No breakfast clubs for kids, no new schools, nothing. I'm very disappointed about what's going on with the Labor government in Victoria, with the couple of MPs that have been took that allowance. It makes us all look bad. Everyone, I feel like I'm walking along, people going, "Oh, what have you stolen?" Off the public purse. And I don't think we're not all like that. So I think those sort of things, just really. And there was the Jeff Shaw a couple of years ago, and it just completely, again, and it's bad for people because then you don't think you can do anything about it, and it's you've got no trust and whatever. I guess it makes my job easy because no one comes to see me, so I can just sort of, No, I'm only joking. Yeah, so I suppose, so those things are not good, and I know that people are thinking about that, but hopefully they'll see a little bit further than that, because those sort of things can happen by any side of politics. That's a personal problem with a person, I think, not a political thing. So those sort of things. So there's been a few problems. Hopefully we can sort of get back on track, and instead of all these sort of things that really don't change a person's life, and we can start thinking and talking about the things that do change people's lives.
Thank you for joining us on This Thomo Life, folks. I'd like to thank Bronwyn Halfpenny for her time and candour. I'll leave you with Bronwyn talking about the media.
A couple of months ago, the Herald Sun reporter was contacting us all, and the pressing issue was, how many car accidents have you had and who paid for the repair? Because you have a Parliament car. And, trying to sort of get what somebody, yeah. But what is that? Maybe I'm being biased here, but what does that do for anything? No. Well, in fact, it hinders in a lot of ways because it just creates further mistrust and cynicism and fear. And we have, and this is the thing I try to do as well, I suppose. We had a forum for about community safety, and I feel sometimes, I wondered whether some of the people, I just tried to get some local people together, no big organisations and agencies, but people just sort of talk about the drug deal in the telephone box opposite their house, or the drinking in the park that prevents them taking their kids to the playground. And I think some people sort of looked at me and thought, oh, well, can't you be thinking about some bigger issues? I think this is what interferes with your life. I know there's bigger issues, but I think we've got to deal with both. You've got to deal with what, concerns me as a person living in a street or whatever, not just be thinking about the big picture crime issues that probably will never really touch us in much of a way, yet these smaller things. Well, I shouldn't say small because that means it's belittling. You know what I mean. I used to work at the Food Preservers, and they used to have a recording studio out the back because there was a fellow there that did some work for 3CR, and he did a lot of interviews pre-recorded. And then I don't know why, but we got these other it was two guys that they used to do an environmental program and send it to community radios all around the country. But they used to edit, like if they didn't like somebody, because of course it's probably a bit different to mainstream, but so they'd be cutting bits out and making them sort of take out the knot. So I suppose that was the first fake news.
Departing Thomastown.